And we are live. And I'm actually about a minute late. So my apologies, folks. But this episode's live stream, we will be discussing episode 6 of Agatha All Along after last week's stunning to some reveal of what happened involving the one, the only Wiccan. Let's talk about it. All right, guys, Brent here back with Events. Cover all things Marvel, DC, Lord of the Rings, anime, gaming, Star Wars, and more. And as always, be sure to hit that lovely like button if you are enjoying the streams. If you aren't enjoying any videos, you know where the thumbs down button is. And if you're new to the channel and you really love the content, make it all the way to the end of the video. You know where the subscribe button is. But look, I have a favor to ask of each and every one of you. For whatever reason, our videos are not being put out by the algorithm for whatever reason. I don't know what that is. I don't know what we did. I don't know if we're in trouble or not in trouble. We're in this weird middle ground area. So be sure to hit the like button on those videos and watch us even harder to show the YouTube algorithm who's boss in that one. Antonio, welcome as always. I appreciate you coming on in. You have been a steadfast supporter as always. Appreciate you. And look, last week's episode of Agatha All Along shocked some. If you've been following the channel and watching all the live streams, you know that I called this in episode 1. I said the boy was Wiccan. There was absolutely no way it was not going to be Wiccan. All the writing was on the wall. There's no reason that Wanda's body would have been shown unless in some way, shape, or form you were going to address the elephant in the room. That is the fact that her kids were even brought up for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. And yeah, I know. Subpar film. But at the same time, it's still Marvel. It's still going to relate itself back into itself because why not? That's just the way Marvel works. You have to watch every single intellectual property sometimes to understand what's going on, whether it's good, bad, or Loki. Because Loki is exceptional, it kind of gets its all little genre and tier all the way at the very, very top. And last week's episode finished in a very, very strange point. Because while we got this huge reveal that, the kid is wicked, that he's not only magically inclined, but he's more magically inclined than every single other person is on this road. And they have been holding out in no uncertain terms on their power and using it to everyone's advantage up till now. I understand secrecy. I understand the importance of what's going on here. But are you meaning to tell me we had a character who was strong enough to save Sharon and chose not to? That's real villainy at work here. All jokes aside, but look, having Wiccan here definitely is going to shock a lot of people, push things in a very, very weird direction. Because Wiccan is a very, very powerful character, and I'm sure there's going to be people out there and be like, Wiccan's out here, he's pushing an agenda, he's doing this, he's doing that. I don't think that part of the character has ever been brought up as some port of relevance other than episode 1 where his significant other called him and was just like, hey, he worries about me. That's not really driving down any singular point. What the point that's really being driven home is how important this dang family is to Marvel. With Marvel coming back into the limelight now that they have the X-Men fully unfolded here and they have Wanda, we have Magneto potentially coming along the way. We used Quicksilver in everything going on with, Agatha. Well, in WandaVision, we had Quicksilver making his return there as the person who wasn't. What's up, Innocent Imposter? Welcome in. I am excited for this episode as always. And with everything going on, it's definitely interesting to see how high up his power level is going to be because he's still a teenager. But if you read the comics, Wiccan is absolutely no slouch and someone you're not going to have just this everyday conversation with of who ultimately is going to be the person to stop him. Because now, with everything that transpired, he grabbed not one, not two, but 3 different witches, threw them off the road, and called it a day and was just done. I can't deal with you. I'm not going to have this problem today, and moved on with his life as best he could. Because Agatha, mud puddle. Green Witch, mud puddle. Protection Witch, mud puddle. Our Divinity Witch, mud puddle. So maybe 4. But this episode and this series has continued to push us to greater heights of what magic can truly do. I'm fascinated to see where ultimately they tie all these pieces back in together and what Wiccan's true goal is at the very, very end of this. Because sure, we had the Funko Pop spoilers for some back in episode 4, I want to say. That Funko was advertising for the boy, or the teen, as it was labeled, to be Wiccan, and for Aubrey Plaza's character to be Death. Notice one character who prominently did not get put in a mud puddle. Aubrey Plaza's character, Death, who was not afraid of anybody, but was only really, really, truly annoyed with ghosts. Why would Death be annoyed by ghosts? Because ghosts belong to the dead, but they're also still living. It's a spirit. It falls in that stupid in between where there's nothing Death can really do about it, where it's just like, he's there, just there's nothing to do about it. It can be part of like a new Avengers team. I mean, that would be exactly the way we're going here. We even have I know we have Isaiah Bradley returning for our new Captain America film, which I'm very excited for. I think it'll be a very, very nice touch on the series, even though I still have my reservations about how the new Captain America is going to stop a Red Hulk. But that's another conversation for another time. Isaiah Bradley's nephew, grandson, I can't remember which one it is another young Avenger. We have Kate Bishop, who's coming back in another series alongside Hawkeye. So we're going to have her continue to go. We still have Miss Marvel on the docket. So there's a lot of people who can fill in for this Young Avengers team, and we could make a pretty good run at having a Young Avengers team assembled that could be prominent enough to kind of take out a mid-level hero or mid-level villain. My only issue is who is that going to be? Because as far as these characters are concerned, I think Wiccan's the only one that you would consider a powerhouse. You have someone with a bow and arrow. You have Hulkling, who's, Hulkling. That's something. Don't approve of his haircut, but something. We have, Isaiah Bradley's grandson. We have Kate Bishop. We have Miss Marvel, whose special abilities is shooting weird plasma steps. It's a really weird in between as far as like what they're going to be able to do. Like, are you America Chavez? That's another one I completely forgot about, even though I just talked about the film in which she was in. Because she was such a forgettable part of that film. She was like a side introduction character. She wasn't even like a prominent thing, even though to sell tickets, they're like, hey, we have, a Latina character here. She's going to be a huge part of this film. And it was just Doctor Strange and his relationship issues where Wanda just refused the fact that her kids don't exist, even though now they do. So it's like, I guess she was right all along and wasn't truly as much of a villain as we thought she was, even though we saw exactly what she did to the team of heroes that went to stop her. R.I.P. Black Bolt, especially. Yeah, America Chavez could do a lot of cool things, but again, what villain are you throwing at these people? And the only villain that has been rumored to be a big piece moving forward is Doctor Doom, led by Robert Downey Jr. If Doctor Doom loses to this team, how do you think the fan base is going to feel? I'm just saying. Gypped would be an understatement. Power scaling entirely wrong. Also correct. There's absolutely no way Doom of all people loses to the Young Avengers. He's not one of those individuals that absolutely go down, let alone he can fight the regular Avengers at their peak form and go for days. Usually fighting to a draw where he'll usually just teleport himself out of there, or he'll find a giant explosion, and next thing you know, you can't find him. So Wiccan being our only power member, as imposters very, very well point out, not really going to be a great matchup. So they're going to need to find somebody else. I mean, maybe Kingpin gets brought back and he could have some power up to where it can work out. But again, he just got defeated by Echo, technically. So we still have to run around about that going on. It's like, where does even Echo fit in with all the teams and all the pieces that are going on currently? There's a lot of different stuff to kind of break down about where things going on. Gore's daughter that Thor's taking care of, that that is going to be a powerhouse character when we get to it, Antonio. Thank you for reminding me. Maybe we should just put you up here one of these days. Because clearly, America Chavez and Gore's daughter, two key pieces that my brain entirely did not think of. So I'm very happy to have you along, as always, in the chat, holding it down for all of us. Episode 6 dropped. It looks like Wiccan is in a car, it looks like with his significant other. So I'm sure there's going to be some backlash pertaining to some folks about that. But just continue with rolling with things as long as it doesn't sidetrack the story. I could not care less. This story has been very interesting. It's been a lot of interesting twists and turns. Episode 6, titled Familiar by Thy Side. And for all I know, this could be Nicholas Scratch, who has been mentioned at several points in time, which is Agatha's own son that she traded away. You know what minute marker I have? That's a recap. Recap. There we go. Just trying to find the correct minute marker. I will post it on screen for everybody to see, and we can all sync up. Follow along on your own devices. Pull us up on one screen, and then on the other, or on your phone slash computer, just however you prefer to do it. We'll pull up the stream, and we'll cover this episode 6 of Agatha All Along. We'll watch together so that no one is really going to be left behind while you guys are syncing up. I'm gonna grab my water in the fridge, which is just right over here. So I'll be sliding out of the frame for a second. See, it was just a second. Wasn't leaving y'all hanging for all that long. All right. So if you're set up on Twitch or on YouTube, whichever one you want to follow us on, whenever we do live streams, we do both. So use whichever platform is your preferred one. We'll pull up the episode off the side and we'll talk about things as they are happening. Let me know in chat when y'all are ready to go, and we will enjoy some amazing episodes of Agatha All Along. See what Familiar by Thy Side has to offer us. Because last week was a rock star of an episode. Hope they follow it up with another good one. We have 3 episodes left pertaining to this series. So, or 4 episodes? I know we're ending with 2 episodes at the end. I got to double check the episode count. So, by all means, pulling up the episode, let's enjoy Agatha All Along. Hopefully, this will provide us some context pertaining to Wiccan. He's praying in Hebrew to open the episode, so that's very interesting. Does anything involving Wanda say that she is from that religious background at all? So that's pretty interesting to go. Is that his quote unquote mom? Because this looks like he has a very standard family. He has like a basic background. He doesn't have anything pertaining to Wanda directly. And I wonder if this could be one of those alternate universes where somehow Wanda wasn't implicitly implied to be his mother. So pretty interesting to see how things are going. It looks like he's going through some kind of rite of passage pertaining to this faith. I'm not familiar with it, so I'm not even going to try and speculate further than that. All I know is because he's reading Hebrew because of subtitles. So it looks like he's just having his moment, pass through the rite of what he had going on, see what Wiccan is going to do overall with everything pertaining to that. So let's see what we got here. And then, of course, he's going to break away from the party. Looks like his dad name is Jeff, and his mom's name is Rebecca. Interesting. Was he adopted? Communicate in human words? Human words? Why was that verbalized by that? I wonder what they're doing with all that. Very, very interesting to see where they're going with that. Okay. Bunch of dancing, none of which I know about. His name is William. Honestly, the whole chair thing does not look like as exciting as it's probably brought out to be. Going into a palm reading booth, probably where he accidentally discovers that he's got more going on than anything you would think, or he already knows. See how ultimately where we go with that. Ooh, and the divination witch is, of course, there at his party. So she should have known him the entire time. Why she didn't say anything? Curious. Was she the one that put the hex on him not to reveal his name to Agatha? Hmm. Okay. That is wild. Because this opens up a whole other can of worms about how we're going to deal with things. Okay, you can't tell someone who's trying to read your palm just pretend you're not here. Also, I've never understood like what palm reading is like really going on here. I mean, her memory could have been swiped, or this could be like something pertaining to the road. So this could just be a whole lifeline is broken in two. What does that even mean? It's like there's a lot of weird stuff to kind of go down. Is the splitting in two have something to do with the timelines with the two Marvel worlds, just where it went like that? Like, could that be where we're going with this? At least to speculate openly. So timeline in two is very interesting. Reverse tower. Her memory is still terrible. So that's going to be another interesting factor that they have to throw in or at least attempt to account for with things. And whatever the tower being reversed is freaking him out. Also, I understand old women have their charms where they're able to say like baby and hun and stuff, but baby is probably one we should have phased out and left it at hun. When you're past the point of 60 talking to like a teenager, I think if you're not related to them, maybe work on the verbiage a little bit. That looks like that's the hex mark. That is the hex mark that was drawn that ultimately muted him. That scribble that went over his mouth. The divination witch was the one who did it. So unless we have a fake, she knows significantly more than what is really going on here, which is not ideal. Because why in the world would she hex Wiccan? Even though now she's very confused about this whole series of events. Right? And who is the woman there? Mm, very, very curious to see ultimately where they're going with this. Because at this party, they're going to definitely introduce his boyfriend at some point, and they'll have to like go about things from there. Okay, Westview again popping up. So will this jacket ever actually make it back to him? Like they're going to go check on everything that was happening with Wanda and the giant barrier that was going on here. So like definitely a weird series of events. They were definitely way too close to that series of events to kind of go over things properly. Huh. But he did find the hex. It did get back to him. I wonder if he was able to put two and two together at that moment in time that he was about to be cursed. Oh, almost had a car accident. Ah, okay, but that's a side hit. Was that his side of the car? But yeah, this is WandaVision when the barrier went up. Everyone was freaking out. Mom's gone. Nope, mom's barely there. Dad's struggling back with consciousness. Oh, ooh. William is, yeah, he is. Considering he was the one that made the call about safety, you thought he would have grabbed onto something and then hoped to make it work. Yeah, because now you're gonna have to go try and flag down everything going on. Hmm. So yeah, that's a significant hit. There's no way he's walking away. Anomaly. His heartbeat stopped. So I want good night, Tommy. Good night, Billy, which flipped him back. and broke him back into remembering everything that happened, along with everything going on. So, yep, as Tony said, Billy Maximoff. So he's gonna have a and the cop is the protection witch. This is right now a very well written show. The fact that most people have written it off, a little shocking. But again, they still need to land this, so can't just be amazing for this time period and then stop. Billy Maximoff, though, back in the fold, so going to be interesting to see what he does with it. I wonder if that talisman was what blocked him from that. It's like having your memory switched in and out like that based upon the timeline of this and having all the timelines split in two. Something definitely went heinously awry because now he doesn't even necessarily seem close to his own parents. Yeah, exceptionally uncomfortable with the series of events. Oh, oh, he can read minds. That's a problem. I mean, Vision Quest could still happen. Is that necessarily the best move to have this early on? I mean, I know we're in phase 4, but they've been milking what phase 4 and everything going into phase 5 for what, 5 years now? Like we have to hit a major point eventually. Everyone's patience with Marvel's not going to be eternal. Well, there's some good news, but mind powers is definitely a weird thing to pick up from a car accident. It could also be something that he picked up because he was that close to everything going on. Welcome in, Ophelia. Definitely a weirder episode to jump on in on. Yeah, because he's a stranger in his own life. He has no idea what's going on at all. He's just kind of fumbling his way forward. Like he's basically seeing himself through the opposite side of a mirror on someone he won't recognize. And he's gonna have to like try and struggle to fake his old life that he doesn't know like truly happened. And he's caused a lot of accidental trauma involving his family. And animals are like very, very attuned to spirits and people and things of that nature. So for it to bark at him means he's just super, super high. He's keyed in to the change that just happened here. So we're going a lot of weird bones here. Yeah, because he's like, I can read your minds even though your lips aren't moving, which be a terrible situation to be in for anybody. Mm, mm. Weird, weird moments going on for everybody right now. Yeah, because he's stuck in their head and he hasn't figured out how to like high tune this power or have someone like mentor him. So it's like he's just reading every single thought. It's why mind powers are always at the bottom of power list. If you could ever like pick one, you would just end up drowning in other people's thoughts. And well, how many people's random thoughts from around you are like legitimately going to be positive? Let's be honest here. We're not in one of those societies anymore where everyone's like, "Oh wow, look at that nice guy. I think it's a really cool Majin Vegeta has." Be like, "Look at that dork talking to a microphone and 8 individuals online. What a weird guy." And if that's the nicest or worst, things things going pretty good. And he's struggling right now to like deal with his parents because it's just an overwhelming amount of concern because they truly love him. He was obsessed with magic before everything because it looks like, yeah, a lot of Disney just kind of throwing in their own stuff. They had The Wizard of Oz, they had Alice in Wonderland. Um, there was the Goonies up there. Houdini, I don't believe, is one of their intellectual properties or something they've done anything with. Yep, Wizard of Oz set. He's got the Disney castle down there at the bottom. And then he's gonna kind of have to like, if that's him happy with his family back in his old life. It'd be weird if his mind powers could work to where he could see photos and like gain the memories back. That could be a thing. But overwhelmingly, he's just a stranger in his own room. You got to be careful with mirrors when you're a magical individual. They're not. They don't necessarily work the same for everybody else now. Because now, oh, he's trying to convince himself. He's not believing it whatsoever. Oh, reading minds would be an absolute nightmare. I'm telling you, you'd just be lost and overwhelmed, and it'd just be a point of despair in which there would be no equal. Give me like super strength or flying or bullet invulnerability or something like that. Something easy here. Hmm. Okay, so they're gonna have his relationship touched upon a little bit because they did, you know, flesh it out like when he was he always worries about me during the phone call in episode one. Hmm. It seems like an healthy relationship. Yeah. But seems to be pretty simple. He seems to have adjusted well in 3 years, trying to force everything that was, going on overall. It's not, what you would consider, easy to go on. Oh, mm. Nope, he's still reading minds though. He hasn't figured it out. So he like he broke out of the moment. Oops. Yeah, because you can't just keep living with like, hey, I can read your mind. I know everything that's gonna happen. That's going on. Okay, so it's only during intense feelings. So that's something. Oh, he's trying to. The other guy misinterpreted it as something as being aroused as opposed to be like, hey, no, 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 no. This is like fully mental, nothing physical. I don't know how most of us would react though, getting like this kind of information. 'Cause this would be especially confusing considering they're teenagers. And let's be real, most of us as teenagers, or at least I know I was, I'll speak for myself, hypersensitive and hyper judgmental. So if someone's like, hey, I'm not me, I'm not sure I was from the age group or maturity group to be like, you know what? I get it. I understand. I just be like, one of those head nods where you're just not sure. Hmm. So there we go. They're having a positive moment. Good for them. They're happy. They care about each other. Mm. And as long as they're, supporting each other, who really cares at the end of the day? Only one question pertaining everything going wrong. Who are you? Which is a very, very valid question because, oh, he's been doing a lot of research. Okay. So he's trying to figure out what everything's going on. The red dot, I see you. I'm sure a lot more eagle-eyed people will be able to find some Easter eggs pertaining to what their next step's going on. They're challenging the narrative. Oh yeah, you trusted what the media told you, which was Marvel at that time. And there's the green candle, which, hmm, and that was before she was being sued by everything. His symbol just flashed in the sky, so There's the symbol, which is the one that was on his talisman, which is the one that goes over his lips. So, super thing. Of course, they mention Reddit as a crazy place to find crazy ideas. I just find it for when I'm stuck on a game and no one else seems to have the answer easily accessible. So, hmm. Secret underground meets brought to you by Reddit. Creepy guy, trench coat with blocking cameras. Not necessarily. Teen is very trusting. I will give him that. I usually would wait till they came forward, but you know, I've never met anyone in an parking garage, with everything going on. That's a terrible name. It's more about Wiccan all along than anything going on. Mm. Yeah, acting strange around a car that's already seen you just makes it weirder. So Ralph slash Randall has answers. they're 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 making fun of like their own narrative about the sitcom issue that a lot of people are like, oh yeah, they just copied and pasted a sitcom for 6 episodes. And like, it was enjoyable for a while until everyone got their Mephisto theories wrong. I wonder if this is also a reference to Quicksilver in some regard, as he had also a name that was immature, to say the least. So Ralph never got magic, but this is where he kind of got his info. He's like, do not mess with Agatha, bro. Witch repellent's not going to be in a bottle. I really would not want to keep calling him that name. Oh yeah, Evan Peters would just be magical, right? I'd be like, I'm leaving. What in the world is this moment? Evan Peters. He's having a full psychological breakdown, but again, you met someone off Reddit, decided it'd be a good idea to meet him in a garage, and now you're here. So I don't know what to do with that information. We're worried about the market value of our homes after you were hijacked by a witch. I have other problems to deal with. Okay, yeah, this was Evan Peters. They did. So this is weird how they're going over things. And the first thing he yelled was Tommy. And now he's like, oh crap, nail on head, mind reading brother. So it's like they were mentally transplaced. They were just moved from one body. to another at the moment that the red bubble happened. Yeah, so he's like, I wish, you know. Okay, do you really need to be worried about like the Bowflexes or the Blue Waves or the market value? I don't know. I don't know, Antonio, about Agatha's control worse than Westview. I think it all would have sucked. Not having control of your own physical body has got to be an eternal nightmare. Let alone the fact that they are literally obliterating your mind for their own use, and you just kind of have to go along like a drone. That sounds terrible. That's a bad time. Are we really worried about what Agatha eats? Venmo, PayPal, something like that. He's a one man show, and your last name on Reddit is Mr. Bonerific. Reddit, one of a kind. The parents seem to have addressed everything fine. I mean, Sharon was also drinking by 10 a.m., Antonio. So I mean, she was dealing in her own way. So so a lot of weird stuff going on there. I mean, maybe some people had it significantly worse than others because like Agatha's neighbor when she ran out naked seemed to be just fine with everything going on, and I'm assuming she was close enough to the same area that things were in a very very weird predicament. Hmm. I wonder if he's actually going to look up what that symbol means. He looks like he's been looking for a while and figures out a way to say it, and thus the hex begins. Or is he able to, you know, go? The Witch's Road's playing in the background for those can't hear that. Is everything involving basically Agatha was removed for the most part, except well, that's not a bad photo of Agatha actually. And then like over different time periods, she was just gonna keep reappearing again and again and again. Kind of the gift of being immortal. It's like a vampire, but you actually have the ability to go back throughout the centuries once you get the camera introduced and just be like, you were here, I was there, and there, and there, and like eventually you would get ousted at that point in time because with how good technology is now in facial recognition software, you'd get everything figured it out. Okay. The Witch's Road song is playing, and now he's just stuck on this, like he has to go that way. Wow. So, does him digging cause the problem in the end? Like, he accidentally hexes himself? Because the music "I'll see you at the end" could be a sign from Wanda being like, "Hey," ultimately, she's trying to be like, "Come see me at the very end of the road, we can get our answers then." But ultimately, this is what I believe led him to break in, so this is a full recap episode because that's the same year he broke in Agatha's house in. So, we're gonna get a lot more questions and answers with everything. Release spell? Did he ultimately do it to himself? Hmm. Look at them just having a nice little happy moment, and then he's just going to go ahead and put everything on hold to go down this witch's road. It's a great idea. No, this is a terrible idea. You're breaking into a known witch's house who survived centuries. What would you, in your limited lifespan of maybe 15, 16? understand more than someone who's been around for centuries. It is not ideal. But also now I can see why he failed at breaking in because, well, he wasn't break-in material. I mean, Antonio's asking the right questions because death is supposed to be in there, but again, death can be in multiple places. So we still have to kind of go down this rabbit hole of like how he ended up in the situation he did, or is somebody else going to arrive and get things figured out from there? Wow. From his perspective, it's hilarious. Like, from Agatha's perspective, you're just like, "You've had a couple beers, you're walking on a roof." Yeah, this version's looking like more like if you let me do this, like I mean, he understands, yeah, no criminal records, like, just keep running. Mm-mm. He almost got away. Good old Sharon. Shout out to our queen. May she forever rest, as goofy as she was, and as much of a day drinker as she was. She has a shirt on that says "Boner Family Reunion," just so we're all kind of tying these pieces back together. We had Mr. Bonerific. We have Boner Family Reunion, spelled the same way. I think Agatha ultimately is the one that does tie him up and just leave it there. It's like, why is Agatha? Because Agatha's acting is going to continue to be over the top weird because this was like when she was at the most bizarre. Also, sometimes when people do things that are supposed to be intimidating is very weird. Yep, Sharon has officially stopped Wiccan. I am 100% with you, Antonio. That is Sharon is now stronger than the best teen magic user we have right now. Yeah, their interaction is going to continue to be just super bizarre because, like, I think he's realizing that her marbles are just as scrambled for everything involving Westview as everyone else's, and that you know this whole spell thing is going very, very off kilter. That has to be weird as like an actor or actress to be that over the top and that bizarre and like on purpose. Mm. So they're basically still having their back and forth of everything of where her memory is having an issue. His memory is actually surprisingly solid. So things have been either altered, manipulated, or everyone's having a really good laugh because he's going to try a spell now. I don't know why you would announce everything going on. I mean, Agatha is definitely a terrible mom. No one's gonna, have that conversation. And then Aubrey Plaza being deaf, having a relationship with a witch, color me shocked. Like, you put two dark entities together, these things are gonna happen. But the fact that Agatha keeps ruining those moments is definitely weird. Do you feel like she would lean into the relationship a little bit more, considering she wants it just as much as Death does? But again, we haven't gotten the finality on what happened with the son, so we have to cover that rabbit hole at some point. Like her memory's starting to come back in all these flashbacks, but he hexed himself. So he's been saying his name the whole time, but Agatha's just not been understanding, and we haven't been understanding. Huh. Let's see where the road takes us. Because Agatha's, yeah, she's gonna pull herself out of there, and she's gonna be a little bit more than upset. Considering this is a longer episode, I still think we probably have another good 7 minutes worth of content. And as always, it's been great watching with y'all. Watch on Twitch or YouTube, your preferred choice. But yeah, Agatha's just too stubborn to go down at this moment in time. Just some mud. What that means for our other witches, I do not know. I'm very genuinely curious to see what they're going to do with them because there's a lot of question marks pertaining to them and how their story will impact things and how many are truly necessary to finish in this road because we're 3 trials done. And Agatha just survived her mom, so I don't know what else she's going to have to go through. And now the kid she was mentoring as a quote unquote mother figure, which she's not suited out for, as Devil Freaks would clearly point out, uh, not that fond of her anymore. Because yeah, he just broke the talisman he got from the divination witch, which he should have recognized, unless the car accident jostled that part of his memory to where he wouldn't remember her. So there's a loophole there. Yeah, Agatha's going to be more impressed than pissed, I guess. She's figured everything out. Like you've been lying the whole time. Mm. Everyone's having this whole fun dynamic about power. Mm. They have a complicated relationship, to put things lightly. She was like, I was like maybe 80% certain, and then you yeeted me into a mud puddle. So there's that. Mm. And she's putting every piece together on the table bluntly so that we can address how this is going to be awkward for the next couple episodes. Not William. She's like kind of an interesting predicament. Yeah, Lily and Jen. What are we going to do about that? We're going to fix this? She's killed a lot and she's been busy. Wanda, yeah, the exact same conversation. I'm not like you. Yeah, because this is interesting magic to try and figure out how he went from one body to another. Because Agatha's definitely going to try and corrupt and be a terrible mentor, which comic wise would be semi accurate in some respects. Not a lot, but just enough to fit. Because technically, William could have died in the car accident. Thus, Billy was like desperate for a host. Boom. Then and there, done. But what he's going to do with this body is the real question. Ah, Wiccan's got a big head now. Just like that. He says, I don't need Agatha. Oops. Having a little power malfunction, are we? It's adorable. He was talking all that smack, and then all of a sudden he can't cast magic anymore. Agatha is being the perfect evil mentor. She, he wants Wanda back. Or does he want just his entire family back, which is, I mean, White Vision is still already out there, so it's like you don't need to go down that road. Hmm. And then she dropped a mountain on herself, which everyone seems to keep forgetting. Yeah, Robo Papa. That's one way of calling him. He will reappear at some point. We'll see White Vision when we see White Vision. His twin. Good old Tommy. Mm-mm. Is he? I wonder if he's just trapped inside the team this whole time. Mm. Yeah, this family is very dramatic. It's like the Skywalker family in Star Wars. They're just like, this is a dumpster fire, but you're entertaining. Mm. No, he definitely has trusted her. He's just trying to fake this going on right now. Agatha does not care in the slightest about trust. She is the perfect evil mentor for Wiccan. But again, all this was slowly leaked when like all the interviews involving Elizabeth Olsen about her saying how open she was to coming back hit just before the series dropped. I'm like, the timing is more than a little coincidental. And then Funko really dropped the ball and everything going on. Billy, if you're saying you're not that nice, you really are that nice of an individual. There's nothing in the post for the episode, so overall, I gotta say it was a fantastic episode overall. Really, really enjoyed it. You guys leave your thoughts in the comments below. I will also leave you with, we just have a poll recently put up on our YouTube about the games that we'll continue to play. We're still playing Supermarket Simulator Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, but in whatever free time we're able to find, we have a poll for 3 games out there. Do you want to see us play more Baldur's Gate 3? This time it'd be an honor mode run. Star Wars Battlefront Classic, or we'll finally finish Fallout 4, which has been a long forgotten thing that one of our viewers kindly reminded me I had not finished the story mode on that one. So thanks, whoever reminded me of that. But look, back to the episode. Big reveals, big reveals. Billy Maximov back in here. And there's not necessarily, I'm not saying they're dead, Antonio, but I am saying they would only reappear if the story needed them to. And what I mean by that is, do we need them to continue where we're at with things? Because we really don't. They don't provide more to the story, and they aren't already pre established Marvel characters that we care about. Like, they exist. They're cool, they're unique. I'm enjoying them. As far as moving the story along, we only need Billy and Agatha. Other than that, everybody else, including my beloved Sharon, the weird old lady who was day drinking at 10 a.m. because I don't know why, I don't really think is necessary. we can just kind of keep on moving forward. And we're going to see more of these two and how their interaction and how they're going to have to overcome the seven. Because I know this was an episode where we had, a filler episode, which is more what like I like to call a fill-in episode because this filled in a lot of blanks with a lot of questions we had, which is fantastic. It was desperately needed. But we still have to now figure out how we're even going to defeat the seven. There are still those seven witches that are coming for Agatha, and they will not stop until their mission of revenge is complete. And as long as she's breathing and hanging out with Billy, things aren't finished. So we're gonna have to see how ultimately that, kind of loops back around and how things are eventually, addressed in that form or fashion. That's gonna be fascinating to see how they're gonna wrap that up. But again, we still have to figure out what's even at the end of the Witch's Road. And my guess at what's end of the Witch's Road right now is going to be Wanda. And I know a couple people in the comment section should at least scoff at that. And I know she dropped an entire mountain on herself. She's good as gone. She was holding the Darkhold when she died. And if we know anything about magic or at least the Marvel Cinematic Universe, with magic, never say never. And with Marvel, unless you see a body in a casket, usually they're coming back. And even in sometimes when you see them in the casket and we mourn them and cry for them, hey, Robert Downey Jr., looking directly at you, sometimes they still come back in ways that you don't necessarily want them to. He was a terrible casting. I will die on this hill. Um, I want him back. I don't want him back in this regard. With all things considered, Wanda is going to be at the end of this road. She's going to have survived using the Darkhold and be put in this weird middle ground of everything going on. Hence why we saw even just a sneak peek of her at episode 1. And when she's at the absolute end of this road, what she's going to be is someone who's going to basically have what she's always wanted, her kids, because that's what she was fighting for in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. And while things are technically unfair the way she was labeling things, also in a sense, playing, God of the multiverse isn't something that you can really do unless your name is Loki, in which case you get a cool looking chair and you get awesome horns and you're basically holding everything together because God bless your show, they really knew how to write that dang thing. Shout out to Loki again. But with everything involving Wanda, we're now going to be sucked back into her family and her story and ultimately what's more going on just involving her, because I know in the comics she's a nexus being, she can't be removed, she's integral. Are they going to find kind of a loophole to continue to include her? Because and yeah, Loki was exceptional, Antonio. Loki was absolutely exceptional. But at this moment in time, kind of going through all the different steps that we have involving WandaVision, or well, Agatha All Along, Wanda's going to come back. These two stories are basically yin and yang. Wanda was the hero, Agatha's the villain, and they just keep circling each other for all perpetuity. And anytime you have magic going on, things are going to continue to just revolve in this weird, weird manner where we're going to have to see things, kind of addressed at some form or fashion, regardless if we necessarily like what's going on or we don't like what's going on. And yeah, sure, we definitely ended up getting bonered. There's no other way of saying it. There was Mr. Bonerific and there was Boner. The episode is in fact over. And Angel, I don't know what you're upset about, but I'm sure you're going to tell me about it in the comment section because I'm not necessarily happy with this episode, but I'm not also upset either. We got a lot more answers than necessarily what we're looking for. And we were able to figure out that Billy was able to survive through everything going on just by a magic and moving from one body to another. He seems to have a happy and healthy relationship with his partner. Seems things seem to be going good. Episode for free, there is none. It's literally Disney Plus. That is the only way of doing it. We don't have anything for media or anything otherwise here. Anyone with free links, automatically, I'll just drop the ban hammer. You'd be best looking elsewhere for that one, Mediagate, just to put it rather bluntly. No free links in chat at all. Everything involving Wanda, though, having her back is going to kind of, move things along in all uncertain terms. It's going to be weird to see how they're going to address Vision, considering he's like not going to be somebody who It's gonna be weird because he's the same person, but he's not. He's in this super weird middle ground and is just not necessarily somebody that you can dismiss based upon his power level. So how they're gonna deal with him, I don't know. And then Billy, with his wish, what is he gonna do? Truly, what is he gonna do? Ask for his twin back? Is that it? Because if he is, then the Young Avengers are going to be sharpied in as the next thing Disney's gonna do. And the only villain we have upcoming on our docket is Doom. And I talked about that earlier. So for those, you're gonna have to hear this rehashed. The Young Avengers would get absolutely spanked by Doom, Robert Downey Jr. or otherwise. There's not a single character other than Wiccan that is going to even give him something that even looks like token resistance. So they're gonna need to come up with something, or they need to come up with something fast because these Young Avengers, they just ain't it. They just ain't it. And again, we still, like Antonio pointed out very astutely, how is Aubrey going to tie back into this as our character Death? Because we know that Death is definitely a prominent character, and Death is someone who has a very intimate relationship with Wanda. What in the world happened involving Nicholas Scratch? That was her son who was sold off and is likely that rabbit. How in the world are we going to tie in all those things that happened in the past back to what's going on? Because Aubrey Plaza's character just went mysteriously missing. In this episode, she should have popped up right either looking to help Agatha all along, because if she pulled Agatha out of there, it would have been weird because ultimately she's the one who wants everything to go this way. So having Rio like back in some way, shape, or form is gonna be fascinating. We need Death to make some kind of grand reveal because we know Agatha is torn up about selling her son. We know that for a fact. The way that she tried to embrace Billy Maximoff as her own is only the way a mother hurting would try and grasp another child and be like, this is my replacement. It's not your flesh and blood. She knows that. She understands that. So everything involving Death probably knew more about this kid than we will or did going into it. And sure, I called it on episode 1. Sometimes you get lucky, folks. But again, it just seemed to fit the bill that everything involving Agatha is going to be everything that involves Wanda. It just seems like those two are eternally just going to go back and forth till the end of time. For a sports reference, it's like Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. They were just constantly going at it their whole entire careers. And we loved to watch it, much like we loved WandaVision, much like we're enjoying Agatha all along. And dare I say, we're slowly working our way towards loving this series. It's doing very, very good. I understand that the streaming numbers aren't up and it's no longer in the top 10, but as far as putting out a good story that makes sense and isn't all over the place, this is a solid product. This is a very solid product. There's very little for me to sit here and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're doing this. I can't believe they make these moves. No, this checks out entirely, and everything is kind of going in a very, very solid manner. This Witch's Road, great storyline. We still have a lot of interest involving the Seven, and there's a lot of YouTubers that have broken down exactly who the Seven are. I'll let you kind of figure that out as everything's ongoing. Because there will be more information divulged about them coming up. I'm sure we're definitely going to go about there. But again, everything involving that hex was, Billy basically hexing himself. That's wild to like go to that level of effort just to ensure what was going on. How much did the divination witch go on? The fact that the green potion witch was mentioned in the YouTube video. The fact that the cop turned out to be our protection witch. Like we literally touched every single major key point in character that he has met at some point or another. So the fact that Agatha found these individuals more or less is the teen knew of their existence at one point, whether it was like as himself back when he was William or as his new self, Billy. He knew both sides of the coin. So he'd be able to be like, this is so and so. This is so and so. We need to look for this person. They'll be at this spot right now. He literally guided this whole path and was like, I have everything memorized. Kind of gives a whole new meaning to it, doesn't it? He's basically just playing with a rigged set of rules, and ultimately he was able to let all the other witches kind of go through their own moment in time. And we lost Sharon because he didn't want to use magic. That's on him. Any witch who's passed is basically on him. He took out the last 2 or 3 witches. Well, okay, Agatha did take out one because Agatha still has to retain her anti-hero nature. We can't have Wiccan's debut be him slaughtering witches. Sure, it gives a more compelling story overall that he is someone who is going to be more tempted to go down the same path that Agatha did because he's already got a body count, but definitely wants to be more like his mother when she was good because Wanda, for all intents and purposes, is going to have to go down that weird gray area. Yeah, she corrupted tons of people's minds while she was dealing with grief. Yes, she did become fully evil and is almost destroyed the multiverse. Yes, she eventually did choose the right path and dropped a mountain on herself. But that doesn't excuse her from everything else that was going on. That's just you choosing, death as a better way out than any other path of forgiveness. It doesn't really work that way. Welcome in, Elizabeth. Welcome in. And yeah, Aubrey told Agatha he wasn't hers. So, like, yeah, that happened 2 episodes ago. Aubrey knows. Death knows Billy. Does Death feel cheated that Billy didn't ultimately go to Death? Just leaving that out there. Don't know how Death feels overall about that being something to either latch on to or something to kind of learn from or kind of grow with. Like there's a lot of stuff to kind of have to break down involving their relationship now because Death should have been here by the end of this episode, at least in some way, shape, or form. Or was Death tending to everything else that was going on? And we could get into, how characters look. I'm not really going to delve down that road because it's not the purpose of the show. And, I'm not down that road. I already happily focus on more important things. I'll just put it that way. But everything involving Death and Agatha is definitely not at a close. Their relationship is going to play a key factor in a lot of the storytelling here. And the fact that Nicholas Scratch's name has popped up 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 times. We're going to need to get some definitive answers as to the story of Nicholas Scratch. Antonio, I was waiting for you. I was waiting for you to talk about Sophia Falcone. You had your episode. I'm sure you loved it. It was a fantastic episode. The Penguin, the live streams always deliver. They have not explained the relationship between Rio and Agatha to the utmost and fullest in the show. I know in the comics it's at least referenced or at least touched upon in some way, shape, or form. But again, having Death in a relationship with a witch who's just more than happy to continue to give Death gifts in the forms of other witches, yeah, I'm sure their relationship's going to be really healthy. A lot of gifts is really good. Gift giving is a form of love. It's just gift giving to Death. That's a complicated relationship to say the least. So your morals better be at the very worst gray to kind of cover everything that's going on. And yeah, this is definitely a tragic way of going about everything. I mean, he was an individual, had his own life, he had his own family, he had his own friends, he had his own happiness. He had everything basically in a perfect state of just euphoria. And then ultimately was ripped away, forced to be stuck in this relationship with his parents where he's forcing himself to be happy and to pretend to be somebody he's not just to appease them and make them happy and not concerned about his safety and well-being. And the show for the Penguin is absolutely fantastic. So that's everything going on. And yeah, you definitely can't hate someone if you don't know them intimately. It'd be like me hating one of the Kardashians. Like I can't legitimately hate them. I've never met them. I don't know them on a personal basis. They have not affected my life on a personal basis. It would be weird. It would be bizarre. It doesn't make sense. I dislike them. But that's nothing to do with anything of importance to the show. What Agatha and Rio have, or Agatha and Death, I should say, have seems to be a love hate where they love each other as individuals, but they hate what's happened between them to make them so distant. Because, truth be told, Death looks like she's more than happy to claim Agatha at any moment in time. But as we all know from Agatha, Death can't harm her, and Death is fully aware of that, which is a very, very confusing way of saying I think Death can't ultimately take someone's life. but can only accept them, which is weird. To me, that part doesn't make sense. And even as I'm saying it out loud, there's still a few question marks in my mind as what's going on there. And then having all your actions, yeah, stolen by the Scarlet Witch. Yeah, it's literally WandaVision all over again. Wanda, the more they're trying to make her stomachable or a hero, the more they're truly doing wrong by her. Let's think about her story. The first time we're introduced to her, she is a brainwashing witch who absolutely destroys the Avengers from the inside out and sends Hulk on a rampage that nearly destroys a significant city. Good for her. Next time we're introduced to her, she's struggling to use her powers and she ends up throwing a explosive through a window that destroys a bunch of individuals, some of which were members from Wakanda. Cool. Not really helping. Then we continue to go on again involving Wanda, and the only time that she does anything that's like specifically good is she is mauling people we don't like to death in Avengers Endgame. That's what, or was it Infinity War? In Infinity War, and then she's also useful in Endgame. So it's like, then we have Westview to top that off in the kit and caboodle of, hey, let's brainwash everyone, make them live my happy sitcom fantasy to where I can have a family and my life is all kittens, gumdrops, and rainbows. But also, I am mentally manipulating everybody to the umpteenth degree. Great character, everybody. She's definitely a hero. And I'm using hero with air quotes. And I know how she's portrayed in the comics, but as far as the MCU outings, you can't really look at her as such because she hasn't done anything that you would look at and be like, hey, this is heroic. She is a brainwasher, a timeline ruiner, and she's self obsessed with her own goals. Sure, tragic hero is in, but how far are we willing to bend those morals to make that shoe fit? Probably a lot further when it comes to the almighty dollar because we need to definitely sell her. And then, yep, House of M was her best story, but even then, are we all gonna sit here and agree that her decisions were good, that they were correct, that they were valid? That's what it should have done? 'Cause I don't think so. Really don't think so. Great story, terrible actions. So having us, kind of sell us on the fact of we're going to end up in this happy, perfect situation or scenario where ultimately having Wanda back is going to be satisfactory. Am I the only one not seeing that as a success? Because I can't. Wiccan is a fantastic character. Agatha's giving. This story is fantastic. We're going in a lot of great details. We're covering a lot of insanely cool backstories. And I think the inclusion of Death as Aubrey Plaza is absolutely fantastic because her weirdness and quirkiness is fantastic for the character. But we still need to land this somewhere where the MCU can push off to something greater because as much as I enjoy Marvel, how long have we been in phase 4 or phase 5? How long have we been in there without a consistent source of a villain, a finite point, something bigger to look forward to? I understand, like when the Avengers came out, it was like supposed to be this perfect time, perfect place, perfect scenario, and then Phase 2 was, and then Phase 3 was just, oh, that hit. We seem to have lost our way, and we need to be pushed in a really, really good direction here. And Robert Downey Jr.'s casting leads me to believe we're not going in that direction. And then we, lost our, we lost Kang. That was a hit. Regardless of the Ant-Man story being a total dumpster fire, it was a hit for us because he was acting well, but the person behind the character had many issues that needed to be addressed and were, addressed behind the scenes. So not really going to break down and everything go in there. And then passing the baton to the next generation does not take 6 or 7 years because the generation you wanted to pass it on to, they were like, what? You want them to be at that sweet spot where they're between like 9 and 13, super impressionable. And this has been going on for like, we're now 6 years into it. You're missing that sweet spot where the person who really cared about Marvel when they were like little cares passively by now. Like you start growing out of things. So it's like we're not going in the correct direction. We need to hit on a point and be done with it and move on. Hit on a point, be done with it, move on. These characters need to grow. These characters need to adapt. These characters need to change into something that we can believe can be a real, legitimate team capable of stopping a major villain. And the only villain we have on the docket again is Doom. That's not going to fly. This team is not going to fly, but again, that's a whole nother scenario for a whole nother time. I mean, Billy involving Westview and Multiverse of Madness just to save Tommy would be wild. It would be absolutely wild, Antonio. And then we're going through all the different phases. And like I understand passing the generations, trying to make the baton work. Everything after Endgame has just been hard to come back to and hard to really capitalize what's going on. Loki has been the only thing that has been a constant for us. Even what I thought was going to be a sure thing in Black Panther 2 was not a sure thing. They botched that story. There's absolutely zero universe where that version of Black Panther takes out that villain. There's none. Not a one. Namor throttles every single day of the week. And the multiverse is still established, but now we have one timeline, another timeline. Deadpool's over here hanging out with Logan, and then we have the canon one, and then Loki's up there on his throne being just an absolute BA holding it down for us. Thank you so much, Tom Hiddleston. You've been at least a constant in everything else that's going on here. We all are rooting for Marvel, so don't get me wrong. We're not hating. But looking from a realistic perspective on what the fans want, or at least what I want, and hey, correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section. That's what it's there for. Sound off. Let me know where I'm wrong. We want them to continue to tell a good stories that continues to evolve, but has a definitive moment in time we can point at and be like, yo, this was it. This was cinema. This is everything we needed it to be. Loki from the TV redeemed himself too fast. I mean, he's told his story over 2 seasons, and in those 2 seasons, as well as the time where he tried to stop Thanos, ultimately, trying to offer his own life to make it happen, I would say he's a redemption arc. I mean, he's still not, expunged from all the deaths he's caused, but the amount of lives he saved by holding 2 timelines together is more. But again, the loss of human life, whether it be any, is still villainous. Loki is not a hero. Did he save a bunch of people's lives, though? He did. So it's like he's adapted, he's changed. But is he the same Loki we're introduced to who is just bloodthirsty to try and make a point happen? Nah, Loki's a villain who's doing the right thing for his reasons, which will work. Because, you know how many times people had to work alongside Doom to make good things happen in the comics? Quite a bit. And Doom is a villain. He's a villain. He's a villain's villain. He's a comic book villain that people love. So if they botch Doom, Marvel's going to have hate on itself that it has not ever dreamt up in a long time. And I know there have been blunders, but you mess up Doom, your dollar line is going to suffer because people hold Doom near and dear to them, which is why so many people are so upset at everything that happened involving the Fantastic Four time and time again with their false starts. Because if you can't get the Fantastic Four right, how are you supposed to get Doom right? It's got to be a perfect symbiotic relationship. The great hero has to meet the great villain to tell the great story. It's why the comics we grew up with in the 90s, or at least the shows we grew up in the 90s, the Batman versus Joker, where we had Kevin Conroy, may he forever rest in peace, and Mark Hamill's Joker and Batman were perfect. There was not a better 1A, 1B out there. It was what we needed. So it's been a fantastic ride. As far as that's concerned, we need something in Marvel that can be at least similar. And right now, we're working towards a big question mark. But as of now, the show has delivered in so many regards. I'm happy with what we've seen overall. Deadpool, Sharon, and Owen Wilson could save the MCU better than Wolverine, Loki, and Cameo. And we can find out why Thor was crying. Antonio, that is the perfect clickbait. But even as much as I love Sharon and her list of powers, I don't think she could save us all. She could provide great entertainment for us, and I hope I provided great entertainment to you guys so far. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the lovely red subscribe button. Keeps you up to date with all the amazing content we have for you. And if you're on Twitch, follow button's also free. Greatly helps us out and keeps you track all the good other shows we have coming. We have another live stream for Penguin coming on Sunday. And we'll be back same time, same place for Agatha All Along next week. And we may even have our resident Marvel expert back in tow. I'll be excited to see him back when we have him. It's been a pleasure talking to you guys. Sorry, Potato Man, we're heading out, but this show has really been Billy all along. I'm thankful for each and every one of you. Be sure to watch our videos, help us out so much as we are so close right now to being potentially monetized just by you guys viewing things. So thank you guys so much for all the love and support over the years. We'll see you in the next one.